Goddess will for man is that he turn to a genuine spirit of humility and a true willingness to work at making peace. Peace does not come naturally. The God of Abraham plainly declares that man does not know the way of peace. Many teachings in the world have their roots in the Word of God. Islam means submission to the will of God. Those who truly follow the path of submission will be blessed. What was stated by their own Prophet Muhammad is true. The best jihad is 37, the one who struggles against his own self for Allah. He understood that the noblest battle anyone could ever hope to enter into is that of fighting against one's own selfish human nature, in order to yield oneself to God and obedience to God. Muslims greet each other with Salam Alaikum, which means peace be with you. Although such a greeting is good, peace does not come by well-wishing, but by visible actions that help make it a reality. It is true that peace between the descended half-brothers of the two sons of Abraham will not be brought about by man's efforts, but first by God's intervention to humble both, so that they will work toward peace God's way, and with his help. This centuries-old rift cannot be healed by man's own efforts, even if man genuinely tried to do so. The one who is recognized in the beginning of the Quran as master of the Day of Judgment is about to pass out judgment upon mankind, by overthrowing every government of man. It is also a true saying that, if anyone harms others, God will harm him, and if anyone shows hostility to others, God will show hostility to him. Sunan of Abu Dawud, Hadith 1625. Be careful how you follow God in the few remaining years before God overthrows man's world. There are teachings in Islam, Judaism, and Christianity that clearly have their roots in the truth that originates from the God of Abraham, but as we continue, it will become abundantly clear that these major religions have strayed very far from the God of Abraham. The other half-brother Abraham was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. When he was 99, God told him about a son he would give him through Sarah, through whom many nations would spring. Only one of those nations would become Judah, the modern-day Jewish people. The other people and nations will be explained later. 38. When Abraham was told that Sarah would indeed bear him a son, he asked God to please consider working only through Ishmael, so that Sarah would not have to go through the ordeal of bearing a child in her old age. But God told Abraham that Ishmael would indeed be blessed, and he would multiply him mightily, by making him a great nation. It would be a nation of people that would spring out of 12 princes, who themselves would grow into distinct nations, making up a great nation of, primarily, Arabic peoples. But it was also the one eternal God's purpose to raise up an additional 12 nations that would, in time, spring out of Abraham's son, whom he was to call Isaac. As soon as Isaac was weaned, Sarah became jealous of Ishmael and pushed Abraham into banishing Hagar and Ishmael. This grieved Abraham deeply, but God told him to go ahead and do it. From that time forward, neither lineage dealt with each other with genuine care and concern. Instead, animosity and deep-rooted attitudes were passed down, through both, from generation to generation. This result is because mankind has not understood the true will of God, and his purpose being worked out on this earth. All have failed to follow the way of peace which comes from God. Mankind does not grasp God's purpose, that he is working out through those 24 nations that have sprung out of Abraham. Although Judaism is one of the smaller religions on the earth with about 14 million followers, it stirs up more controversy and disdain than any other religion. This small group that follows Judaism sprang from only one of the 12 nations that came out of Abraham, through Isaac, and then his son, Jacob. It will be covered later, but the other 11 nations that sprang out of Abraham, through Jacob, have always polluted the ways of God, and removed him far from their own selfish pursuits. However, the nation of Judah has been quite outspoken in their adherence to the one true God of Abraham. Although they have been far ahead of their 11 brothers, holding to a belief in the 39 God of Abraham, they have drifted far from the true will of God and the truth. The Jewish people use the first 5 books of the Bible more than what is covered in the Psalms and Prophets. If the Jewish people are honest with their beliefs, then they must acknowledge that they are not obedient to the law in some of the most basic doctrine. In reality, the book of Leviticus has little meaning for Judaism, yet it is the 3rd book of the law. Have their teachers and rabbis tried to follow the law of offerings and sacrifices? What are the excuses for not doing so, if they truly believe in the law that they vigorously profess? There is a lineage of Levites among the Jewish people, but where is the priesthood? And how can the law be followed without a high priest? Where is the unity of belief? Where are the priests? Is this way of life null and void, because there is no temple? Is their obedience to the physical performance of the law of sacrifices without meaning, since they do not practice it? Does prayer, as some suggest, replace obedience to the book of Leviticus? Where is that stated in God's law? If there is presently no temple, where they can serve God, can they not serve God in a temporary one, as in the wilderness? The true answers to these questions reveal the magnitude of the problem. It is their paradox, because by the law they know they have no authority to build a temple, not even a temporary one. If God has not made such a thing possible for Judaism, if God has not given them a temple, then has God abandoned them? Is God unable to deliver those whom he will, especially if they are his own people who are following him in truth? And if he will not, what is the answer? Of all people, the Jewish people have been promised much by God, because it is promised that through Abraham, and then through the lineage of David, who was of the nation of Judah, that the Messiah would come. This promise is on a spiritual plane, which 40 is far above the promises given to Judah's brother, Joseph, which are of a national nature, and on a physical plane. But the understanding of this spiritual promise has been clouded by time and false teaching. What is the truth? It has been lost by Judaism for one main reason. It is due to the spiritual promise, and Judah's rejection of it, that the God of Abraham is about to come and overthrow the government of Israel, of the literal nation Israel, which is today controlled by the one ancient nation of Judah, the Jews. What a paradox! If you are practicing any form of Judaism, you need to humbly consider what is being said here because, of all people, you have no excuse. You have been lied to by your teachers for several hundred years now. Don't you have just a little curiosity about what these lies are? And don't you presume you already know the complete answer? The false teaching for Judaism, the real basis of the problem, and great false teaching is this. Judaism claims to truly follow the God of Abraham, but isn't he observe Passover as God instructed in Leviticus 23, in the 14th day of the first month at even, Heb. Between the evenings Ben Harabaim is the Lord's Passover, Lev. 23:4. Instead, Judaism observes Passover after the 14th day, on the beginning of the 15th, which is the first day of unleavened bread, a high day and annual Sabbath. But God clearly says it is to be observed in the 14th day. If you keep Passover, when do you begin its observance? Does it begin before or after sunset of the 14th day of the first month? If you are one of those who starts this observance before sundown on the 14th, how much of your service is actually in the 14th, and how much is in the 15th? Of all people, those of Judaism, who keep the weekly seventh-day Sabbath, know when the Sabbath begins, and when it ends. 41 They don't need a rabbi to tell them what this command means, because they have grown up with the knowledge of sunset to sunset in the counting of this holy day. There is one exception to this. Some rabbis teach a 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. observance for the Sabbath, regardless of when the sun sets, but even a child would understand that such reasoning is not obedience to God's instruction. Any correctly kept Sabbath observance among those in Judaism is between the two evenings. The beginning of even is when the sun sets on the 6th day. The Sabbath begins at the very time of sunset and lasts until the following even, which ends the 7th day. This is their own definition of Ben Harabaim. However, they will not acknowledge it for the observance of Passover, but they do acknowledge it for the weekly Sabbath and annual holy days. Passover is recognized as one of the holiest days in Judaism.